com, and it looks like we had somebody pick up on that call.
Yeah, it's our good buddy Murray. Murray, how are you this morning?
Very, very windy over here.
Really?
We have 40, I think it was 40 millibars from the north of Scotland to the south of England. So we're getting sort of 76 knot gusts.
Wow.
Not even I ground handling that.
Now, Murray, you guys got any snow on the ground up there, or is it just cold?
We've had, but it's gone again.
I see.
Praying for it. I'm a man with almost as many pairs of skis as I have paragliders. I'm not sure exactly how many paragliders I have. I'd have to count it up, but it must be about 16 or 17, maybe 20 gliders. I've got a lot of them anyway, because I do a lot of flying. And I've got, I think it's 12 pairs of skis.
Wow.
Lots of short skis, lots of twin-tip skis, and I spend more time skiing backwards than I do forwards when I'm teaching skiing. And of course we combine the skiing and the paragliding. So I've just actually made up a set of skis. I bought some very cheap children's skis for 10 quid and put 180 quid pair of bindings on them, which is specifically designed for mountain climbing, these bindings. So they're fantastic for ski paragliding.
Awesome. Good stuff. So what are you calling in for?
Just a very, very brief one today.
Sure.
One of the things, of course, is that obviously the thing about all this weather is these are days not to go flying.
Right.
But these are also can be, with limited circumstances, not the full-blown CBs, but maybe a day when there's a bit of towering cumulus and there's gust fronts, but not outrageous. These can be the perfect days,
the best days,
particularly to go out at this time of year when you're not that current, to do some ground handling. Because if you go out ground handling when the conditions are perfect, well, that's wasting a good flying day perhaps. If you go out when the conditions are such that they're not too dangerous, but they are trying, you're getting wing collapses and you're having to recover them while keeping the glider stable above you, that is great training.
Absolutely.
And that's what we do a lot of. We do a lot of training when the conditions are tricky, ground handling, which is much harder than flying. Half the wing collapses, don't drop the wing, keep it above you, stabilize it, make sure it doesn't spin, and give it time, let it recover.
Absolutely.
It's not all bad news.
No, and we shouldn't be focusing so much on the negative aspect of it. It's just more things for pilots to pay attention to and keep aware of.
But also use these things when you've got the situation that's not ideal. Think, okay, it could be a bummer. It could be tempting me to go up the hills. Oh, well, maybe not. What I'll do is I'll go to a nice, safe, flat park where I've got plenty of room, no worries to get dragged about. I'm not going to be annoying anybody. And I'm going to do some ground handling in these tricky conditions.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to improve it from the flying point of view. I'm thinking, no, it's collapsed. I don't want to just drop it and sort it out. I want to keep it above me. I want to stabilize the wing. I want to recover it.
Good thought. Very good thoughts.
Have you found yourself in any of these kinds of situations where you've encountered massive cloud suck and found yourself in or near a big queue?
Never.
Yeah.
So one of the first things that we do before we go out flying, first thing we do is we assess the proper aviation met reports, and we're constantly, from day one, when somebody comes out for the very first day's training, we have a printout or we're actually on the computer and we're saying, right, decoding them. Embedded CBs, CBs, things like that. Those are the days we'll go and we'll do something in a safe manner. If they're stuck for the weekend, that's the only weekend they've got off, and they want to get a wee bit training, we'll go somewhere safe, somewhere low, somewhere that's maybe not an ideal site for flying for that wind direction for that day, but we've driven 30, 40 miles away from where the CBs are, rather than driving to the flying site that's there. We'll do a morning, and maybe the air's a bit turbulent. The forecast for the afternoon might be a lot better. We'll drive that 30 miles in the other direction. Now, that's a total of 60 miles just to get to the flying site. That means that we're then getting safe evening flying and we've not wasted the day. So we'll drive lots of extra miles just to make sure we pick the right part of the day for the right part of the training, including flying.
Awesome. That's probably the better way to do it than just checking it out, looking up in the sky and trying to figure it out from that.
Yeah, because they're not sort of getting, well, we haven't been able to do anything today, it's been a wasted day, I was planning to paraglide, I've told the missus I'm not going shopping with her. Instead of that, they're going out, they're doing something, and they can appreciate that this is a good safety approach, this is a good training approach right from day one, and that's the key. Make use of time, don't get frustrated, and then on the good days, you're current and you're safe.
Good point. Good point, Murray. So, anything else, or you want to hang in on the conversation?
I'll stay on for a wee while.
Okay, cool. We were I was just going to go through and start explaining some of the phenomena of Virga, and that was kind of the next thing. And what Virga is, and Virga, I think, is probably a little bit more easy to recognize, because it's
essentially it's rain that dries out before it reaches the ground normally.
Absolutely.
So you get a good heavy cloud of rain, it's dropping down, but the actual conditions are such, and with the cloud base height, that it doesn't reach the ground fully as rain. So what you're seeing is rain that's not reaching the ground. Now that means that all that energy is reconverting and going back up into that cloud. It could come down later. And if that cloud's coming towards you, it could come down later when it's above you and you're flying.
Right, and my experience with Virga is that because the rain's evaporating before it reaches the ground, it's still cooling and kind of super cooling that air mass that's right below it.
Yeah.
And generally, when you're flying in Virga areas or near Virga, that cool air is going to be associated with sink, and so it's not real good for flying. It's easier to recognize sometimes even than rain is, because when you look at the bottom of the cloud, you'll see kind of streaky, like hairs or fibers or so coming off the cloud, off the bottom side of the cloud, but they don't extend all the way to the ground.
Yeah.
So you get kind of a clear visible area between the ground and the Virga, and generally when I see this, then I'm also thinking that it's not going to be either a good direction to fly in or a good time to launch. And
it's also a good visual indication for CAT, clear air turbulence.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, if you see that, you know that there's a lot of energy being shifted about there. Now, it's not a case of energy being added in or taken out. You're not heating it up and cooling it down. In that sense, it's because it's transferring state. And as the transfer of state occurs over a fraction of a degree, it can switch a lot quicker than actually sun heating up something.
Absolutely, and I think that is probably the part that worries pilots the most, is that it's not going to be as I don't want to say slow of a progression as normal convective heating is, but things can happen quicker. It doesn't generally happen within 15-minute period. It'll take some hours to develop these types of conditions, but then once the conditions are developed, you can expect pretty sudden changes.
Yeah, well, certainly you're talking about quite a lot of hours in states, which of course has very large land mass, but if you're talking about some of the European countries, then it can be a much quicker change, because you have the mix of the air above the ground and the air above the water, which is surrounding all the way around. So
Right.
Central Europe is probably the same as the States, but some of the other countries it can change a lot.
Like in the UK and Scotland, yeah.
Yeah, but I was also thinking, you've got the Med, you've got Spain, you've got people that are going on holidays in the Canaries and all the rest of it, Hawaii.
Yeah, actually that's true. Okay, in those places it will develop quite a bit quicker. Well, go up.
And
cool.
of course it is World Talk Radio. We do have I should say you folks do have an audience literally worldwide.
Yeah, and so we have to remember that. So what's anything else to add into this topic, Murray, or should we move on?
Well, one of the things that we use as quite a good illustration to get new pilots aware of some of the dangers is, if it's a lady, we'll talk about perfume, and if it's a gentleman, we'll talk about aftershave. And it's literally visualizing what happens when you put liquid on your hand. It changes state very quickly, and you get a noticeable cooling or heating effect, depending which way it's going, on your hand. And this gives them a good grip on some of the dangers that can be involved. There's a lot of energy.
Good idea. Yeah, absolutely.
How long does it take to boil a kettle of water, or even just a cup of water?
Right.
Compared with the sheer weight of water that's in the air.
Absolutely. And then the other good effect is that even though you can't see it anymore, like in its mist form, you can still smell it. So there's still some residue somewhere in the air,
Yeah.
So excellent. Good thought. So
And moving on to?
Yeah, wake up, Pop. What's the next topic?
I've fallen asleep here, Murray, not because of you. I got up early this morning. I haven't got much sleep here lately.
I have the advantage of managing quite happily on about 3 hours sleep. As the folks in the States probably guess by the times that I'm on the phone to them or across on the emails.
This sounds like kind of a silly question, but how does extreme cold affect your flying? Because I know in Scotland, the cold, while you may not have a ton of snow, it's a very moist, cold. I mean, it gets you cold to the bone. How does that affect your flying?
Well, I would actually disagree with one part of that, in that the biggest problem is not so much the cold itself, and it's certainly not the moisture. The biggest problem is actually dehydration. Dehydration can be a much bigger risk in the winter than it is in the summer.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the trick that I use for that is the helmet which Gabriel's seen actually has a clip-on mask. Even though it's only a rubber tube about 2 inches long and then it's open to the atmosphere, when you're breathing in and out, it traps a lot, probably as much as 70% of the moisture, which means as you breathe in, the air is passing over this area of moisture and it stops dehydration, and that is the real killer I find when I'm winter flying. If I've got the rebreather on and if I've got liquids, the cold isn't a problem. You can wear clothes for that.
Well, now, I haven't seen this mask that you're wearing, but explain that to me, and I'd like to know more.
It's like a visor, basically.
Oh, just like a motorcycle visor?
It's essentially, I had a specially imported helmet, which at that time wasn't legal for this country for motorcycles, but they imported it as a favour for me for paragliding. And it has a clip-on rubber mask, which is a bit like a gas mask. And it's only a couple of inches of tubing, but it traps a significant percentage of the water vapour that you would lose by breathing out. And 3.5-hour flights in the middle of winter over the snowfields are not a problem if I have the mask on.
No kidding.
Absolutely, because in the wintertime you also don't think so much about staying hydrated. That's the cold really is never much of a problem, I don't think, unless you get sucked up in shorts and a t-shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the fact that you're still losing a lot of your body's liquids to evaporation. You're still sweating underneath your flight suit even when it's cold. You're still and then when you're breathing, you're losing a ton of it. And
they normally refer to the heat loss as sort of 40% your heat loss is through your head, but to be honest, it's not quite what it says. It's not as if you're radiating heat from your head. The helmet would take care of that. A lot of it is the amount of energy which is stored in moisture in your breath. So when you breathe out, you're losing that. By keeping both the moisture and, to some extent, the warmer, moist to be added back into the air, it makes a fantastic difference. It really does.
Well, that's interesting. I had never thought of that concept. I just don't fly that often in cold weather, nor do I really enjoy cold weather.
But it's not only the cold, though. It's it's
no. I mean, you get up
weather.
to high altitude, the same thing applies. It wouldn't matter if you were flying here in Southern California. You get up to 10, 12, 15,000 feet. It's cold, and you'd lose quite a bit of moisture in that environment too.
Well, 10,000 feet, you're looking at 30 degrees C drop in temperature compared with the sea level.
Right.
So even in the summer, with a sort of ISA atmosphere, you're talking about minus 15. That's chilly.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that's interesting. And any other effects that cold might have on your flying, other than knocking knees and
your
chapped skin?
feedback in your hands will definitely be reduced as the blood supply tends to be pulled into the core. Warm clothing, etc. is fine, but you will lose a certain amount of sensation on your fingers, so you're not going to be quite as in tune with the glider. But overall, the lift conditions tend to be very good because, of course, cold air is denser.
Right.
But I mean, okay, you lose sensation in your hands, you lose it in your feet. Your extremities are where you lose the feeling first. And one of the problems with that is because your extremities are what's controlling your accelerator or your brake input. Also, I think it's more difficult for the blood to flow. So your arms will become, I don't want to say tired, but you'll lose circulation in your arms sooner. You'll lose circulation in your legs, and after that starts to happen, any input that you give to the wing is going to be a lot more erratic and not less controlled, but less not as smooth anymore.
Yeah. High sugar drinks and sweets definitely make a big difference. And the other key thing is, strangely enough, not having on too warm clothing. I tend to use lots of layers, and when I'm going flying in the winter, when I walk up, I'm wearing a very minimal, maybe even just down to a t-shirt. So when I arrive at the top, I'm not hot.
Right.
And then I'll usually take off that t-shirt, put on a dry one, even means stripping down on the top of a hill, then put all the layers on just before I'm ready to fly, because the worst thing is getting hot and sweaty and then taking off. So you really want to keep your temperature down before you're ready to fly.
Exactly.
Right. Well, Murray, listen, we're up for a break. You want to hang with us?
I'm actually going to save my phone bill today,
Okay.
so I wish everybody a very good day, and I'll listen to the rest of the show.
Thank you for
Wonderful.
the call, Murray. We appreciate it.
Nice to hear from you.
Bye just now.
Thank you, Murray. And Murray Hayes out of Scotland calling in on the show. And David and Gabriel here about ready to take another break, so hang on with us. This is the Paraglider Show, World Talk Radio. We'll be right back.